The Iranian regime is completely collapsing from the inside out, and the rats are officially fleeing the sinking ship. As the devastating US bombardment continues, intelligence reports reveal that the most elite high-ranking families of the Islamic Republic are currently packing their bags and fleeing the country for safe houses in Oman and Turkey. Terrified that the entire population is about to rise up, the panic regime has just plunged the entire country into a massive internet blackout while launching a brutal crackdown on its own defecting soldiers. But their desperate attempt to hide the truth is failing spectacularly. Reports from Oman claim the Islamic Republic's elite families are relocating as the crisis deepens. A message circulating from an Iranian in Muscat, Oman, that's the Omani capital. That message alleges that the families of senior regime figures including Ali Larzani, Abbas Arghachi, and Gholam Hossein Mohseni are currently staying in two major hotels in the city. The message also claims that others who have managed to leave Iran through the land border crossing into Turkey have been moved into safe houses connected to Iranian embassy in Muscat. According to the message, shopping centers in Muscat are now filled with Iranian women and men with clerical appearances, believed to be families connected to regime officials. It further alleges that the family of police commander Ahmed Reja also arrived in Oman via Turkey. The message also claims that the figures involved in financial networks linked to the regime, including Shamkhani family, have long maintained offices in Oman, allegedly overseen by Ali Shamkhani's cousin. Then the original message also has coordinates and map location of the hotel where these Iranian officials are staying. Now, Oman makes sense. Before this war, Iranian elites would go to Qatar, but Iran has been hammering Qatar very hard in its retaliation. That means Oman is one of the few countries that Iranians still consider friendly because they haven't hit them as hard. Now, Omani foreign minister actually played a big role in pre-war negotiations. That friendship, I'm guessing, still extends, at least for now. Maybe Oman is thinking that, hey, if Iranian families are here, Iran won't attack us anymore. And maybe that's true, but the regime's missiles are actually telling a different story. Look at where Iran has been firing all its missiles and drones since this war started. UAE, almost 1,800 missiles and drones. That's half of the all launches that we have seen from Iran. Kuwait is the second largest, around 600. Then we have Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. And then we have Oman, actually the smallest country that has been hit so far, just 16. Smallest, but still shocking considering how friendly Qatar has been with the Iranian leadership. And then we have Israel, a country that's actually involved in this fight against Iran, and that country has only faced 400 drones and missiles. That's around 10%, and it also means that Israel has actually faced less missiles than UAE and Qatar. That's just insane. Those two countries are getting hit for no reason, and that tells us everything we need to know about Iran's strategy. Iran wants to make sure the whole region burns, hope the pain stops the war, and hope the regime survives it. But the elite families are already making backup plans. And it's not just the elite families, clerics are fleeing too. A clip went viral from Toronto International Airport showing a Shia cleric and his family arriving in Canada. This same cleric was then photographed marching at Al-Quds Day in Toronto, and in that footage he actually confirmed to someone that he's from Iran. When clerics start leaving, you know things are not going well. And guess what? Even the Islamic regime knows this, because they are now cracking down hard, even harder than what they have done in the first 2 weeks of this war. They are now taking it to the next level. Does that mean that a regime change is coming? Well, we don't know the future, but as you guys heard President Trump mention, that regime change is actually not one of the official goals of the United States, even though many people assume it is. In fact, if we look at Polymarket, which is a prediction market, it is currently showing regime fall in Iran at just 4% probability by the end of this month. Surprisingly, that number has actually gone down as this operation has progressed. Meaning people are actually believing what the administration is saying, and on top of that, regime change does not look likely, at least as of right now. Now, I like looking at Polymarket to see what the future holds because it's the world's largest prediction market. Traders put real money behind their beliefs on how events play out. So the odds you're seeing are not just predictions from experts with no skin in the game. They reflect actual informed conviction priced in real time. Politics, economics, geopolitics, sports, culture. If the world is talking about it, there's probably a market on it. Traders can buy yes or no position based on their beliefs. Let's say Polymarket has, will Iran and US agree to a ceasefire in 2026, listed at 38%. Someone following the situation thinks that's too low. Well, they can put $1,000 on yes at 38 cents a share. If there is a ceasefire, their $1,000 turns into $2,631. That's more than $1,600 in profit based on just reading geopolitical situations. And guess what? You don't have to wait for a ceasefire either. If there's progress announced, the odds jump from 36 to 62%. Then you can sell your position, making more than $600 in profits. That's why, if you're someone who loves watching our videos, you should definitely go check out Polymarket by using the link in the description, going to poly.market/basics, or scanning the QR code on your screen. Now let's look at the new crackdown that the regime has implemented. This graph shows us the Iranian internet connectivity. You can see from the graph that when war started, there was a significant drop, but it was still nowhere close to what we saw in January. But now, well, that blackout is almost identical to January when they massacred 30,000 people. This tells us a lot. This means regime believes that this has become existential, and they're implementing the same controls that they implemented in January. And the crackdown that we're seeing isn't just on civilians, it's on their own forces. Serious signs of internal crisis are emerging inside the Islamic Republic's security forces. Desertion, executions, and deep mistrust are reportedly spreading within the regime's power structure. Reports say members of the regime forces who have distanced themselves from the system are being punished, raising new questions about loyalty within the Islamic Republic's military and security institutions. Reports of punishments and even executions of deserters have drawn renewed attention to the internal condition of regime's power structure. Analysts say that this may reflect growing concern about declining loyalty among forces meant to sustain the regime. Now, late last week, I think on Friday, we talked about how 2 diplomats from Europe and Australia have defected to the other side. This happened after the United States put out a public call basically calling on diplomats to defect from the regime and join the United States to help bring the regime down. Even though the official goal is not regime change, this call was put out, and seems these 2 diplomats actually, took up that call. And I'm guessing, and this is just a personal opinion, that defection probably made the regime officials a little bit concerned, and that's why they are cracking down even harder now. Let's get back to the report. Desertions are reportedly highest in provinces like Esfahan and Tabriz, and the problem is not limited to lower ranks. Cases are emerging across different levels of the security structure. Field reports describe breakdowns in communication and coordination, with growing confusion and disorganization within units. Many personnel reportedly feel that they are being used as cannon fodder and human shields, while senior commanders flee or protect themselves. Severe economic hardship among soldiers and security personnel is also fueling discontent. Many have reportedly gone months without salaries or benefits. The level of infiltration and internal rupture within the security forces is described as so extensive that these institutions are undergoing deep internal upheaval. Mistrust and suspicion inside the regime's security structure are said to be at their highest levels yet. A security source says significant numbers of IRGC personnel have fled or attempted to flee. Search operations have reportedly begun to locate missing members, and in some cases, families of deserters have been placed under house arrest. One source warns that when this crisis settles, many may be shocked at how weakened the regime's repression apparatus has become. Now, that does make it sound like that the Islamic regime is basically in chaos, and maybe it is, but I do want to put a disclaimer here that we have to keep every report coming out of Iran with a grain of salt, because it's not just the Islamic regime that's, conducting informational warfare. Other side is doing it too, and that doesn't necessarily mean the US government is putting out this information. That just means that there are a lot of people with incentives to bring down the regime, and sometimes they put out information that's not entirely true. And on top of that, as the internet crackdown just gets severe, gets intense inside Iran, we're going to see more and more of this, because it's just very hard to confirm information or verify information when you just can't contact people inside Iran, when you can't confirm anything that's coming out of Iran, and when you're just not getting a lot of information coming out of Iran, because of course, internet blackout, one of the goals is to make sure the information is not leaking out to the rest of the world. Now, despite all this, we'll always do our best to leave out any information that we think is completely false, and if we're presenting any information that we cannot verify, we'll be sure to tell you guys that. And of course, like always, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button down below, because as you guys know, as part of the information warfare that is going on, there are Iranian bots who go around YouTube and other social media and just downvote posts and videos that they don't want people to see. So this is where your likes and subscribes really do play a big role. This is where I want to shift focus to the Strait of Hormuz. We covered last week that there was an international coalition forming to basically escort tankers across this strait. Well, President Trump just made some comments about these, so take a listen.
Well, they start immediately, but it will take a little time to get here. Some of the countries have minesweepers, that's good. some of the countries have a certain type of boat that could help us. Some of the countries would be, helpful. Remember, it only takes a couple of people to screw up the strait, a couple of terrorists. You don't need their military is defeated, but all you need is a few people dropping mines here and there, and you louse it up. So we need. I'm demanding that these countries come in and protect their own territory, because it is their territory. It's the place from which they get their energy, and they should come and they should help us protect it. You could make the case that maybe we shouldn't be there at all, because we don't need it. We have a lot of oil. We're the #1 producer anywhere in the world ×2, by double, at least double. Now I think it's much higher than that.
Now, one of the countries that may be joining this coalition very soon is the United Kingdom. Remember, initially the UK said that they were not involved in this war, and then their base was attacked and they said that, hey, maybe we'll let US use the bases for defensive purposes, but will not allow any offensive actions to take place from our bases. And now it seems like they may be joining the coalition, because just like the United States, UK also has allies in the Gulf, the same allies that the United States has, and on top of that, these allies are getting attacked by Iran for no reason whatsoever, and now these allies are calling out not just to the US but also UK. In fact, just yesterday, the UK issued a joint statement with Gulf countries condemning these Iranian attacks and calling for collective action in the strait. Many see this as the first step towards forming a coalition. And UK has significant capabilities, including unmanned water drones or water robots, I'm not sure what you would call them, water ships maybe, that can help clear mines. Take a look.
The United States has called for its allies to help it demine the Strait of Hormuz, to help keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Well, the British do have some capabilities in this regard. Britain is developing a robotic counter-drone capability. It's known as a sweep system. We have a ship called Ariadne, which is a small boat which is robotic, and it can relate to other robotic elements. So we have a high-tech mining system, demining and mining, which can be used. On the other hand, the Royal Navy's only had it since 2025, and we don't really know how good it is, but it might be deployed. But here's the problem. To deploy that would actually go hand in glove with the American war plan, and it would be controversial at this stage to do more than just defend our assets and defend our interests in the Gulf, trying to live with the fallout from this war. Going along with a counter-mining job in the Gulf itself might be seen as helping the Americans fight this war, and that will be politically controversial in Britain.
France, on the other hand, is a bit more complicated. They do have an aircraft carrier in the Eastern Mediterranean, and France recently announced that it's not going to change direction and go towards the strait. Now, this announcement was specifically made because there were a lot of accounts on Twitter that were spreading misinformation saying that France has committed to a lot of warships coming to the strait. Now, that's why the French account made this announcement basically clarifying the situation, but this doesn't necessarily mean that France has said they're not going to join the coalition. It just means that they already had an aircraft carrier, and that aircraft carrier has not been given any orders to change its mission. It's staying put in the Eastern Mediterranean. But today, so when you guys are watching this video on Monday, EU foreign ministers are actually meeting to discuss this coalition. So we should have more information once that meeting concludes. So I'll be sure to cover that in a future video. But on top of all this, last night we actually had Trump directly calling on NATO to help because the situation in the strait is actually escalating. Take a listen.
They do what they have to do. But I think they will be ready at some point. But we're doing very well with respect to that whole situation in Iran. We are talking to other countries about working with us on the policing of the strait. And I think we're getting good response. If we do, that's great. And if we don't, that's great too. But remember, like as an example, in many cases, they're NATO countries. We're always there for NATO. We're helping them with Ukraine. It's got an ocean in between us. Doesn't affect us, but we've helped them. It'd be interesting to see what country wouldn't help us with a very small endeavor, which is just keeping the strait open. And by comparison, it's small because Iran has very little firepower.
Now, here's something you probably did not expect. Ukraine is actually helping the United States and our allies in the Middle East, especially when it comes to drones. You see, for 4 years, Ukraine has been fighting Russian drones, which in reality are really Iranian drones that Iran has helped Russia build. Well, guess what? After fighting these Russian-Iranian drones for 4 years, Ukraine has built up expertise and technology to intercept these drones very economically. Let me explain what I mean. Shahed drones cost about $30,000 to maybe $50,000, depending on the technology they have, you know? Some are like low spec, some are high spec. Well, Ukraine has built interceptors that actually cost less than $10,000. That means Ukraine can take out these drones and still come out ahead financially without even taking into account that how much damage a Shahed drone can do. And that's definitely insane. Now, one of these interceptor drones that Ukraine uses itself are called Wild Hornets, and they're truly insane. Just take a look.
So that is how you stop an Iranian drone. That's the Ukrainian-made Sting interceptor drone that flies over 300 kilometers per hour. That's exactly the same interceptor drone that the Pentagon and the US and its Gulf allies have been lining up to buy as Iranian Shahed drones have hit US military bases, civilian centers, and oil tankers across the Middle East over the last several weeks. So right here you can see how these drone interceptors work. They take off just like a normal drone and they can hover here, but then as soon as the pilot sees the target that they want to intercept, they can reach up to 300 kilometers per hour just leaning forward in the air, just like that. One of the main reasons why the US and its Gulf allies want these drone interceptors is that the Ukrainians have mastered the art of making these very cheap to manufacture. This drone right here costs about $2,000 to make. That's compared to the $4 million missile interceptors that the US and its Gulf allies are currently leaning on to take down much cheaper Iranian drones. Flying these drones require combat-tested, very experienced pilots. These could be some of the ones that are called upon by the US and its allies to help defend their military bases. But until the Ukrainian government changes the official policy to allow these drone interceptors to be exported and their pilots to be sent over, these Ukrainians will remain here defending Ukraine from Russian drone attacks.
And guess what? Ukraine has already sent experts to the Middle East to work with the US military, Gulf countries, and Israel. And Iran is furious about all this. Iranian politicians are now publicly threatening Ukraine, saying that Ukraine has become a legitimate target for helping Israel. The irony here is just staggering. You see, Iran has been selling missiles to Russia all this time, selling drones to Russia, and even sending Iranians into Russia to help build a Shahed factory. That means, by the Iranian logic, Iran has become a legitimate target for Ukraine this entire time. I guess Iranians just don't like it when they get a taste of their own medicine. Now, here's the most shocking part. If you look at the experts that are deployed in the Middle East from the Ukrainian side this year alone, that means Ukraine has provided more military aid to the United States than US has provided to Ukraine. Take a listen.
Ukraine has now provided more military aid to the US this year than the US has provided to Ukraine. Zelensky told the New York Times that the US requested anti-drone help last Thursday. The very next day, he dispatched interceptor drones and a team of drone experts to help protect US bases in Jordan. Now, the Times also revealed a source in the Ukrainian government telling them that Washington has only given, over the entire course of the war, 600 Patriot missiles. Now, they've apparently, and obviously there's fog of war and all that, we're not 100% certain, but apparently they've used upwards of 800 Patriot interceptors in just the last few days in the Middle East. Now, that underscores, if true, just how small those donations were in the timescale concerned, essential though they were.